I don't even think we need a formal welcome to the podcast. So
We've already started recording, Brie, because you demanded I press start and it started.
I know. I'm like, press the button, press start. Yes, let's go. Let's just go. So Len and I we were just talking about what we were going to talk about. I'm like, let's just press record. Just press record.
And that's because we were having the most amazing conversations about such different things. And there were open websites and they were sharing artists and
right.
we were just right in this really exciting conversation. And stopping to choose a topic was broke the flow, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. What we were talking about, we talked about some interesting things. Like you asked me, actually, did I answer that well? You said, because you mentioned this Huberman podcast. Okay, so here's how it went. And just stay with me on this train of thought. I said we could talk about journaling because it's been about a year and a half since we talked about journaling. And then you said, oh, this is how our conversations go. And then Len, you said, oh, have you heard that podcast episode from Huberman about the journaling, for mental health? And I was like, oh yeah, I was listening while I made this photo and I showed you. And then you said, oh, do you listen to podcasts while you create? So did we even answer any of those questions? So I guess the answer is, yeah, sometimes I want it to be silent. Like I want to be in my own head. Actually, I study music and I've been wondering about this lately. I studied music in university and I never listened to music when I'm photographing. I find that fascinating. I know a lot of people do, or a lot of people listen to music while they edit or, while they're creating in different ways. And I just don't. I need some talking or something to chatter in the background. And yes, by the way, I will go back and re-listen to parts because I will miss them. I'll be so involved in what I'm doing that I'll take I actually have multiples on my phone right now. I'll take a screenshot of where I'm at in the podcast episode because I want to go back and make some notes. So
that's a really good strategy. I like that as a strategy. I love listening to audiobooks. And I listened to one on the train to Adelaide, which is 2 days on the train, by the way. A train to Melbourne for 1 day and then sleep overnight in a hotel and another train to Adelaide the next day. So I managed 4 books. I did Big Magic. I did quite a few creativity books, one about sexuality and one about Indigenous history in Australia. So they were really mind-blowing books and I couldn't keep doing creativity because my mind needed to catch up on the ones I had just listened to. But I had these moments where I'm looking out the window and I lost listening and the world just disappeared and I was enjoying the trees and the plains and the things that I was seeing flow past out the window and I lost the podcast or I lost the actual audiobook, which is one of the reasons why I don't like listening to podcasts when I'm trying to make art because I lose listening to the podcast and the whole thing turns into the blur when I'm actually working on the art. So instead I try to get to that mental state without having that distraction. But the strategy is really clear, isn't it? That by engaging a part of your brain into doing something, you pay less attention and give less focus to that worry about making art and that intellectual side of making art that allows you to tune into your intuitive self so much stronger. It's the same as walking and talking. While you're walking, people talk more honestly and openly because their brain is engaged in the walking part, just a tiny part of it. And it's almost the opposite, isn't it? A part of our brain's engaged in the listening part and it allows our intuitive part to create art more intuitively because it doesn't have that bit that's questioning, saying yes, no, maybe over the top of it and drowning out the actual doing.
Or hey, you got to take out the trash later. that kind of stuff. And maybe that's why I do it is is so that it's just kind of something a little different to focus on. Although I have to be careful about what it is that I listen to.
Oh, why?
Yeah, because I'll internalize things. Like I listened to The Hunger Games on audiobook while I painted this is in my last house. So it's probably, I don't know, like 12 years ago or whatever. I don't know. But I remember listening to The Hunger Games while I was painting this office and like redoing it and pulling out like a built-in desk and da da da. But I have very visual memories of painting it and feeling horrified what was happening in the Hunger Games. And so I would like associate the painting or the project with this book. And I don't know that that's a smart idea when I'm trying to enjoy, photography. So if it's something that I'm like finding a little slightly disturbing or like some other emotions are coming up, I will switch it to something else or completely turn it off. Like, ooh, I think I need some quiet for right now. I can't focus on that. But ultimately, I really love listening to podcasts because it really does give my brain a little something to tickle it so that some other things don't come up. That doesn't mean I can't create in the quiet. I don't mind that either. Sometimes, I should pay attention to how often I do that.
This raises a question, and it's the question that stopped me doing it, is how much the music, because I used to listen to music a lot while I was making art, how much the music interfered and changed my mood. And it was in the darkroom where I started noticing that the type of music that I played changed my mood and the artwork followed the mood that was being created. So I was going to ask, as you were talking there, how much of the painting reflected the mood of the Hunger Games in the painting. And that's probably part of why the two are anchored together, is that there's part of that emotion goes into the painting at the time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's really interesting. The Huberman podcast that you talked about with journaling, like I remember standing. So my friend lives in New Mexico and she kind of overlooks this, like, there's all these little like creek areas that have cottonwoods and such. And two of the mornings that I was there, one of the mornings was really foggy. Well, they were both foggy. So it was like there was some fog and it was so gorgeous. And that's how kind of I was introduced to her area, was the fog kind of lifted a little by little, like revealing parts of the landscape. It was really a cool experience because she lives up on a mesa, so she's kind of high. And the second time it happened, they got a very, very slight dusting of snow overnight. And so then it was foggy, but different. So I was like, I'm going to go outside and photograph the same things again and see what I see. And because I had already been there, I think, I don't remember, I don't think I did this the first time, but I was listening to this one about journaling, I remember. And because I had already been there, it was familiar. I could like relax my brain. And I also thought about, well, hang on, let me finish my initial thing I was saying. And it's interesting because I remember now, like I showed you this picture of this like phone snap of, these trees and such. And I like remember the journaling. And it's the journaling, actually, we'll link to it in the episode description, but it's about journaling 4 different times about something that was maybe like a terrible experience and how it helps heal you. And I think that's I was like super interested. I was like, wow, as a coach, I'm like, wow, I know journaling is powerful. I know that writing is powerful and being able to see your thoughts, but how the progression of these 4 different times is very interesting. So we'll link it for y'all to check out. Also, I was thinking about something that you mentioned in a previous episode, which is, and I don't know who your mentor, someone said, stand here and in 1 hour, you can move up and down or you can do 360, but you have to, you photograph as much as you can in an hour and you can't move. Who was that?
That's a Freeman Patterson exercise. Well, he gave it to me.
Right.
I don't know where he got it from. It's
I
a
don't
great
know either.
exercise.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's with the progression for me.
Right. And I remember standing there going, I have limited space. I'm not standing in one space, but I remember standing there thinking, this is so interesting. I photographed this and this and this, and there's still fog. So I kind of want to stay, like I just felt the draw to stay out there longer. And I didn't necessarily want to stand there being like without using my camera. Oh, there's Momo. Hi, Momo. And because sometimes I want to just enjoy the landscape without the camera. Like you just want to be in the moment. And I was like, I want to be in the moment and I want to photograph. So what more is there? How can I see deeper? And so then it became like a little bit more of a challenge, which was actually really fun because I had, because felt like I was putting that exercise into practice. See, there you go. I'm putting our podcast into practice on my own. Hope y'all are too.
You can do 2 little extensions to that. And for the listeners that don't know that exercise, we'll just go through it again, is that you're randomly choosing a spot to photograph from and then forcing yourself to stay there. So one way to do that would be to predetermine how many steps you're going to take from the car to choose your spot. So you might say, I'm going to do 150 steps, park the car and then walk into the bush, and wherever you end up is where you do that. If you've got a buddy, a photo friend, get them to choose your spot and you choose their spot for them. And you could be as creative or as nasty as you would like in doing that. And the first time Freeman did this to me, I rolled around on the ground under a tree because he'd put me under a tree, and I had so much fun for that first hour or so doing that. And the photos were quite beautiful because I became obsessed with photographing the depth of the different leaves in the bush. So I'd photograph on one quite in front of me, and then one at the back, and leave the others all blurry, and I'd move them along. And I actually made a video of it, which was fun. And then a few days later, he gives it to us again, and he changed the rules the second time. And the second time is we had to sit there for an hour and journal or sit. So either you journal or you sit, but you're not allowed to make art for the first hour, and then you start making art. And that was also really, really exciting and interesting because I journaled about things that I was seeing, like, the color of the water and the people over there and the sound of the birds and the smell. And yet an hour later when I picked up the camera, I didn't photograph any of those things. I photographed other things and made art inspired by other things that I was seeing at the time. It was like I'd processed some of the beginning photos that I might have taken when I first started. And then to make it very hard, you put your camera on a tripod and you don't move the tripod height-wise or anything, and you shoot specifically off the tripod for an hour. And if we go back to pre-digital, you'd say shoot a roll of film on the tripod and don't move the tripod, but you can pan, tilt and swing around. And if you're lucky enough to put yourself on a zoom lens, work with that. But even working with a prime lens would help restrict you even more. And of course, the goal is to realize that there's photos everywhere you could possibly be. There are photos to be made if you choose to find them and look for them and try to create them. They're there. They're right where we're sitting, or you're standing right now or sitting or lying down as you're listening to this podcast. There's artwork to be made right now if you chose to engage with it. And that's such a powerful concept. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And obviously this concept is not limited to just being a photographer. This is about restricting and limiting yourself to bring out your creativity. And I don't think in these exercises that we're expecting ourselves to make like portfolio worthy art. This is a practice to help us see deeper. And I was even talking with my son about this. Like, I find myself doing, if I stay in one place long enough, I'm doing, or like have a restriction, whatever the restriction is, I kind of go on 3 different levels. One is all the initial obvious stuff, or like what I think is obvious, right? Because what other people think is obvious is, different. And then there's another, then I stand there, and then I don't have to work as hard, but there's more there that I have to dig a little deeper for, but it's not hard. It's kind of just barely under the surface. And then once I feel, then there's going to come a point where I feel totally tapped out. And I did this while I was back in my friend's yard. I'm like, I literally almost said, I don't even remember. Maybe I did say this out loud. I don't think there's anything left here. And I was like, or is there? So, and because I remembered this exercise and I'm like, maybe there is. And maybe because the conditions are so interesting or, and I have the time, like I literally did have the time. No, wasn't hungry. I didn't need anything. I was warm enough. It was cold because, we had just had snow overnight, but I was warm enough, just fine. Well, not warm, but anyway, I wasn't freezing. And I could spend the time to say, what else is there here? Maybe this is a challenge I could take on to find something that's a little deeper, something that's maybe a little bit more unexpected. And I need to go import all my work, but I think that's where the interesting work is done when I'm then on that third deeper level going, what else? What more after I've done all of this? And it's fun because it's a challenge. It feels like work for sure. I don't think it necessarily feels super comfortable because it is work. Like I'm working hard to say what, to really exercise my brain. And I think it's so fun. I love having that kind of a challenge in my work.
I've just put this into the Artists Club as one of our fortnightly photographic challenges that I throw out. And it's not a challenge, it's actually an exercise, a learning exercise. And that was one learning exercise. And it's important to push yourself like for a period of time, like maybe an hour or 2 hours doing it and set a stopwatch or, set a count. I'd have to take at least 200 photos or a full roll of film. Like that's about pushing past that very spot. But the exercise I put out only yesterday when I was writing this week, this fortnight's learning exercise is to revisit the same spot to make art in. So if you're a poet, go and you like writing in a coffee shop, go to the coffee shop, 5 days in a row and keep making art in the same spot. Or as a painter, keep going back to the same spot, that favorite seat, and keep painting from that seat, maybe in plein air, or maybe it's a coffee shop. I love drawing in coffee shops. Or as a photographer, artist who uses a camera, going back to the same spot and revisiting it. And I have many, many projects based around places. And I've got one spot that I've been visiting over and over for the last 8-9 years. I've been visiting it, and every time I go to the area, it goes onto my list to be there, and I try to make it I check the weather each day. And if it's the most optimal day with mist and rain, I go to that spot and I keep working on it. And I really honestly believe I've got a book in this spot. And that's the Fuba Steps in Katoomba in the Blue Mountains, by the way. One of the reasons that this challenges me is when I was younger, and I mean in 1999 when I was making art for my first art gallery in the Blue Mountains, I went down there with the mindset I'm going to photograph Katoomba Falls, and I walked down this beautiful walk into the waterfalls, took one photo, and then walked out and left, and I'd done it. Like I had it ticked off in my mind. Like I've done Katoomba Falls.
That's so anti-Len right now.
Yeah. This is how I got to here today, is by having all these learning experiences and becoming a bit wiser about how to make art. And hopefully I'm sharing that wisdom with you. But, coming back so many years later, 15 years later, and going, oh my God, I walked past the most beautiful places, and why wasn't I photographing or exploring the rest of it? So that book will have the first photo in it. And then I'm working on this project and I keep going back and I keep photographing it and I keep working on it and I keep finding new art, and I'm trying to get past that point of thinking, like I made the mistake before, is I've been there and done it and I've got the artwork because there's more to be found there. There's more work to come out of it. So revisiting is another way of extending and pushing past this. As you said, it's a feeling that you get like, oh, there's nothing else here and I'm going to move on. For you, Brie, you said that's when the good art comes. And I think that's a really important realization because that means that you have to keep going past that feeling all the time and learning how to step through it and knowing when it's coming and finding methods to do it. One of my favourite is to sit down and have a cup of tea.
Of course it is.
I have my thermos, I pull it out of my pack, I make a nice little spot, I sit there and listen to the birds and I sip away and have a cup of tea and a snack and let half an hour pass by and then I get up and start again. And that's when the good art comes.
I love it. I think focusing on one subject, and I think this is kind of universal, but really playing with all different facets of one subject, whether you're a writer or, you are a photographer or painter or whatever, how can you sit with one subject? And I think most people would think, oh, that's boring, but what a great, great exercise to be able to do. Or like if you're a musician and you have a scale, what can you do with that? And so, because that is how creativity blossoms and how we get better as artists. I think of like my creek around the corner. I haven't been there in quite a while. I should probably go visit it and see what's going on there. Cause I know there's like, this is so anti what I was saying. Cause for a while I was going there and going, ooh, what more is there? And at this point I'm like, maybe there's not much more, but maybe there is. And I just haven't gone back to explore it a little bit more. So, all right.
You will know when you have to go back and,
Right.
And you might go back and nothing more might come, or something new and amazing might come, or a further extension of the work that you've done there might come. We don't know until you go and have a try.
Right. Well, because sometimes it has water and sometimes it doesn't. One time I went when I had zero water, but the way the water had evaporated with all of this, like, I don't know what it's called. It made this mud, these interesting mud cracks, but over the top of the mud was like probably this slime that had dried or something, but it was pink. It looked like pink frosting over everything. It was amazing. And I would never have, you just go there to photograph the creek. You know what I mean? It's not really like an icon to photograph. But, if I hadn't have gone just every once in a while to check it out, then I wouldn't have seen that. It's kind of amazing. I didn't know that happened, By the way, what does your shirt say?
It says, my sister gave me this. It says, trust me, I'm a photographer. I struggle to wear it, actually.
I've never seen you. So by the way, Len's always wearing some like floral shirt or something. And this is like, I think the first time I've seen you with something that has like words on it. So I was like, what is he wearing?
It was my birthday present from earlier this year from my sister.
Trust you. You're a photographer. That's so great. That's awesome.
I feel like scribbling it out and saying, no, I'm an artist.
I'm a lens-based artist, but you're just
I love that term. I love that, a lens-based artist. Oh.
Well, it's because Len is in it.
Oh, I hadn't even noticed that.
Y'all, this is how genius we are over here. Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's because it has the word Len in it. Lens.
Yeah, well, I was Leonard until I decided that my business was called Len School.
Yeah,
and then great. I took the popular opinion of everyone else around me to call me Len, because everyone calls me Len. And I started using it myself and telling people that my name was Len, but everyone calls me Len. But I used to run around as a young man going, "No, my name is Leonard," and I'd, bang the bench with my fist, going, "My name is Leonard." But family and lovers call me Lenny, and I love that too. So anyway, I eventually got over myself and embraced Len. And I think it was also a reverse aging process where now that I'm older, I don't mind having Len feels like a younger person's name. So I don't mind now. Makes me feel young.
I was so teased, and I remember in like third grade when kids found out that Brie was a kind of cheese. And it was merciless. I think that's how I learned how to not that I didn't care what other people thought, but like I grew a little bit of a thicker skin, like it's like the sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me or whatever. I mean, because I remember being super upset by it. And then I was like, whatever. This is what they're talking about. I don't know. Seems kind of dumb. So anyway, I was like, yeah, call me cheese. I just kind of embraced it. I was like, yeah, call me cheese. It's fine. And now look, my Instagram account is like a slice of Brie. I really want to be slice of Brie, but it's a slice of Brie 2020 because somebody else has a slice of Brie. So if you know that person, tell them to release it to me. so
you actually make a wedge of Brie, don't you, when you put it on your cheese?
Yeah, but
on your biscuit?
I don't know. I like a slice.
It's a wedge of Brie.
Yeah, but that doesn't roll off the tongue so well.
Oh, okay. I was just thinking of the pun with the sharper end of the wedge or whatever it's called.
I kind of like a slice. I don't know. Anyway, well, this weekend, so I booked an overnight backpack at a local park. It's about 2.5 hours away. It's called Los Maples. So hopefully there'll be some beautiful trees still.
So you're going on an overnight walk?
Yes. That's what you call it, like a walkabout.
We call them bushwalking.
Yeah.
So we would go, I'm going on an overnight bushwalk, or people call it hiking, I think.
Yeah. Mine is a hike. So I'm going on an overnight bushwalk.
That's a very Australianism, I think, bushwalk. Because we call them the wilderness, the bush, the Australian bush.
Well, this isn't necessarily wilderness, but it's wilderness enough for Texas. So I booked a Thursday night. Today is Tuesday. And because this is a popular park, there was nothing available for Friday, and one came available the other day. So I grabbed it. So I actually have 2 nights now. And I'm really excited because I'm working finally on my little ebook that I said I was going to make eons ago. And I think I'm just going to, I know. I'm going to take a journal and just write out all the things I want to say for it so I can come back and put it all together. So I'm kind of excited about that. Don't you find that sometimes if you're creating or like you're deep into creating something, you want to make like kind of a sacred space around it to do it?
I love doing that. And like I have my little ceremonies with the trees, or when the wind blows past and I'm thinking of something, I say thank you to Gaia. And I was telling someone only the other night how much I think that the weather seems to look after me when I'm out photographing. It seems to be on my side. Now, obviously that's my own beliefs there, but and my own imagination coming into play, but it feels like it's supporting me. Like, oh, thank you. I really love that the rain's coming and that the light's going to be very, very beautiful. So, yes, ceremonies are really beautiful, creating a sacred space.
Right. I think so often when we're really wanting to put in the time and effort continuously, like for hours, and just solely focus on something, I think it's great to move. Either you can be in your home, but maybe you clear your calendar, or like, how can you be in your home and, set aside just very specific time, like a couple of days, to do this. Or you can change your surroundings, which is like, just go somewhere. I know some people create by just completely leaving, and going somewhere else at, like at a retreat or whatever. But and that's fine, I think, but I think you can create your own. I think you can, even if it's even if I just 30 minutes down the road went camping overnight, which mine's 2.5 hours. And this wasn't my plan when I booked it, by the way. This is just naturally coming, and I'm like, this is what I want to be doing. And for some reason, I just felt like I needed the overnight. And now I know why. It's because I'm working on this thing. It's interesting.
It's fascinating. The coincidence, I walk out on Tuesday morning with my son. We're doing a 120-kilometre walk, and which is 70 miles for those
Thank
of
you
you
for
in
translating.
Imperial over there. And we're carrying our food and everything for 8 days wandering
Wait,
along.
when are you leaving?
On Monday.
Awesome.
Monday, this Monday with my son. So he's 17, just going on 18. He's just finished school and he's my walking buddy.
Yeah.
And we're doing a walk on the main range in the Snowy Mountains, and it's called Kyandra to Kosciuszko. It's a bit of a famous crossing. It can also be done in the snow season, and it's often skied as well. I'm so excited.
Now he graduated, right?
He's finished school, yes.
How many more walks do you think you'll do with him?
I hope lots. I haven't really seen him much since he finished school because he lives with his mother in another town, and I usually see him every second weekend and for school holidays. And since finishing school, he hasn't had time to come and see me because he studied so hard, he didn't socialise. So he's been socialising madly since then and hasn't really made time to visit. But when I said to him, would you like to go for a walk? He said immediately, yes, I would absolutely love to. So I suspect that might be our way of connecting as we age, is to go and do lovely long walks together, because ones of this size, this is our 5th really big walk. We try to do one once a year. So I hope, I've got my fingers crossed, it continues being a special tradition between father and son. Beautiful place to do it. And of course, I'll be carrying my camera and taking photographs along the way, making art.
How heavy is your pack?
I haven't weighed it yet. I think I'm going to have 7 kilos in just food, which is, what's that, 18 pounds or something just in food or something. Is it 2.2 pounds to a kilo? So somewhere in there, so double it and a bit more, so 16 pounds just in food. We start the walk with a very heavy pack, and by the end we'll finish light. But we'll be walking in alpine areas, so we have to carry a snow tent. We also have to carry a minus sleeping bags and rain, and to be able to survive fully in the snow, because it snows there at any time of the year. We need to be prepared for the worst possible weather that can be thrown at us. In fact, it's actually forecast to snow while we're on it, which is exciting. I'll have the camera out that day.
Yeah, you will. I think the key is if you can carry it and you just staying dry, right?
Yeah, or wearing clothing that can dry.
Right.
That's how I survive as a skier, is also having nothing that can't dry on you and keep you warm at the same time. So you're basically living in either wool or nylons or silk or polypropylenes or, artificial insulators.
This is interesting because I talked earlier about being in my friend's backyard and there was a dusting of snow and if I had been out there without gloves on, or, I put a merino wool layer under my pants just so that I wasn't, super cold. I had an appropriate jacket. I think, especially for outdoor photographers, if you're going to do something, then you want the equipment, you want the tools so that you're comfortable and you can do what you need to do. And I think this is important because I've noticed, as a flute player, I don't really know that much about other art. I've dabbled in watercolor painting. But I think it is really important to have tools that work and to help put us in a physical space where we're ready to and able to create. And I remember having, when I first started flute, I remember having a really crappy flute because we didn't have a lot of money. So we rented this, kind of a junky flute. And I remember getting a much better instrument, and how much better I sounded. All of a sudden I improved very quickly because the tool, it was partly the tool that helped me. And so I think there's one side where we can be creative and we can, work to improve. But then there's the other side, which is what's the bare minimum that we really need to do what we create, what we want.
And clothing, being comfortable in your environment is very, very important. That's where I'm lucky that I grew up outdoors and teaching bushwalking and skiing and climbing and those sort of things that people sort of go, oh my God, you're doing this huge walk. Can you be safe and all those sort of things? It's like, yeah, this isn't even pushing my comfort zone. This is a very, for me, quite a comfortable walk, and I'm very, very comfortable in that environment with having and knowing what is the right thing to wear, what food to take, how much gas to take. Even like I own 6 or 8 tents, and I know which one I need to take instantly because of the conditions that I'm going to take, and which clothes I need to take. I don't have to really spend a lot of time debating all those things. It's because I'm so used to being comfortable in that environment. And it is important to spend that time. I love photographing in the rain, for example, and everyone says, oh my God, how do you do that? And well, the answer is you have the right gear. You dress appropriately, you still stay warm, you keep the rain out, and if it gets in, you wear clothes that don't get cold and you can keep going. And you also need a camera that you can use in the rain. I have a camera that I can just stand in the rain and let it get soaking wet, and I don't have to worry about it. And that's a really important thing. And I had another camera, a very, very expensive camera, and I did that for 5 minutes earlier this year, and I blew it up. I turned it on, and when it was shorting and it blew up the main board, that was a $5,000 camera, thank you, out the window. And it wasn't, I assumed that it had similar weather sealing to the ones that I have been using. And of course, weather sealing is not the same on all different cameras. So I use a different lens in the rain, specifically because I can use it in the rain. Yeah, it's a big thing, isn't it? And even, when we choose a lens, we're choosing a look that goes with the lens, and that's part of our choice as an artist as well, or the paper that we paint on, or the type of paints that we use. They're all choices that make up that visual look that we love personally, our signature.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And there's like infinite combinations of things depending on, what we're creating. I'm reading listening to a book called Awe, AWE, The New Science of Everyday Wonder and How It Can Transform Your Life.
Oh.
It's really...
When I was a young man, we'd go up to somewhere beautiful and the boss would say, everyone go, ooh. And all of us, all the staff, and there was about 10 of us, we all had to do it in unison and go, ooh, together at this beautiful view, expressing our awesomeness of something.
He called it something. These are like nonverbal, not words, but sounds, and they're pretty universal, and I did bookmark. I took some screenshots of where I want to go backwards because he talks about why we want more awe, like what it does for us and how we can find more. Like I shared a post on my coaching account that was just some people going into a donut shop, buying out all of the donuts for the day to help this shop owner because his wife was ill. And I'm like, that is awe-inspiring, right? So or, being out in the landscape, or, there's so many different ways we can experience awe. And what he says, if I can remember right, it really contributes to your overall like happiness and like a long-term happiness. And not a lot of people have studied this. That's why this is so interesting, because he actually has studied emotions and, what they do for you. And he's like, I want to study this one. And so it's just this book about awe. Dacher Keltner. It's pretty good. A friend recommended it. My friend Colette from the Creativity on Demand that I talked about. She's like, Brie, you would love this. I love getting those recommendations. If you have any recommendations for us, like that you, any books or podcasts that you think might be interesting to us, please send those along. Like, come on. I am always open to new things because I want to learn a lot. So
I'm looking for my next one to listen to. I've become a fan of listening to books now, and I'm looking for my next one to listen to. So if you have any suggestions, throw them to me.
Maybe you want this one. What book are you taking on your bushwalk with your son?
I've got 2 printed books. One is on bivvies, living without a tent.
That's the book you're going to take?
That's one of them. It's just a tiny little book, and it's got stories in it. I thought, and it's written from an English perspective, and it's got all these great walks to do in England. And I'm like, oh yeah, I could do that. Or in the UK, not in England. The other one is one on creativity, and it's also a very, very short read. And I've been saving it because of its weight, specifically to take on a bushwalk. My son will take 3 novels. And I just don't believe how he fits them in, but he will read 2 very, very comfortably, because every time I take the camera off, he opens his book and sits under a tree and he reads incessantly, which is why he's, going to go and do law and at university, because he loves to read, which is an interesting story. And I'm just going to diverge onto that, Brie, but when he was a young kid, he went to a Montessori school, and we had to move him from there into a public school through other unforeseen circumstances. And he was behind in his reading because the Montessori hadn't got to that, and he wasn't at the right development ready for it. So he finds himself in a public school and a government school, and his reading's behind. His mathematics is good, and his everything else is really good. And he gets selected for a reading recovery program, and he gets a reading teacher for half an hour a day for 6 months to work on his reading and comprehension. And having that one-to-one attention every day from 6 months just brought his reading back up to speed. And the teacher said to me, you have no idea how blessed he is to have actually had this opportunity, because you will find out in the long run that reading will become one of his favourite activities and shape so much of his future life because of the positive and encouraging attention and feedback he got from working with one person one-on-one. And I think that's a really, really beautiful story, because now, he's a writer. He absolutely loves writing and reading and researching, and his ability to write incredibly beautiful essays is amazing. And it's because of this attention, this positive, encouraging attention one-on-one around what he was behind in. And I say that quite poignantly because I think that that's a story for us as artists to remind ourselves how important it is to get encouraging and positive and supportive feedback as we progress along making our artwork, as we're working on it and developing on it. And that's the basis that I've created the Artists Club, is a place to share art, and then you can get supportive and encouraging feedback without fear of being put down and negated from fellow artists, to encourage you to produce more and to ask questions and to have an absolutely beautiful, meaningful dialogue. And it's getting told where you're going right is so important, isn't it?
Yes. And when you maybe do want some course corrections, having someone show you in a positive way how to do that. And we've talked multiple times on how mentoring and feedback is so good for you. But you want to do it with someone who knows how to do it.
Well, that's built into our system, is that we
Right.
actually teach people.
Right.
It's part of the process. We teach and help mentor people into being a supportive peer. Like, how do you be a supportive peer to another artist? And we could do an episode on that if you like.
Right. Yeah, we totally could. Right. How do you be a supportive peer? I like that. Yeah, I think it is important to know how to support, someone else, but also, as a trained mentor, like as a trained coach, and you also have training, right? Like,
I have degrees in this.
right, exactly.
Yeah, this is all I do.
Yeah, right. So we know how to approach things in a way that that is helpful versus that will bring you down. So, and I think that's really for anyone who wants any sort of improvement in their work, finding a mentor who understands you that you like, and maybe deciding where you need mentorship or how you need mentorship, and then, seeking that out is really important. I think that's great. I love that example from your son about how he flourished. And, I see that with my clients. I'm sure you see this too. When they have one-to-one, when we meet with you all, anyone who's a client, on a one-to-one basis, on a one-to-one level, and over a period of time, can be some really amazing growth. And I think that's not something that we should take lightly. Like, that's hugely important for our growth. And I, like, even this summer, I was like, I want a mentor, and who could that be? And I sought that person out. So it's really good.
I had a most beautiful experience on the weekend, and I'll recount this story, but I was opening an art exhibition of 3 of my students who were my students 10, 12 years ago. And they did a year-long masterclass with me, and they grew, and they've been exhibiting, because part of my masterclass was actually getting people to exhibit as well. And they've been exhibiting and working on their art ever since. And to sit there 10 years later and actually see where they've got and how much they just love experimenting and making art, and have let go of so many of the fears and, the sort of prerequisite things that we put on what our art should be, and let all that go just to be very much in tune with who they are, and seeing their beautiful smiley faces, and each one of them taking me inside saying to me, this is your fault. This is the reason that we're here today, is because of what you gave us all these years ago through this particular process. And as I'm opening and someone's handing me the microphone to start the speech, I'm looking at this gentleman across the road from him, and they gave me the microphone, and I went over and said, you're Owen Thompson, aren't you? And he goes, yeah. And I said, you used to teach me when I was 14 watercolor painting. And it was just such a lovely way to start having, and he was the person introducing the 4th artist at the speech. So afterwards, we had a really, really beautiful conversation and catch up, and he was showing me his work and I was showing him my work, and let's have lunch and actually do this lovely bit of catch up. And isn't it magical when these things come back around and we actually get to see where people have ended up and actually remember these incredible experiences in their life. And it's a blessing of being an art teacher or an art mentor, that we both are, that we get to see and watch people change and grow and blossom into being incredibly powerful artists. And yeah, there's an art to it as well.
Absolutely.
There definitely is an art to it. And art education and teaching photographers, that's my life more so than even my art itself. Like, it's so important to me and who I am and what I do. I can't imagine ever stopping teaching people. That's what I live off financially. It's what I nourish myself on. It's what I do. I'm more interested in running the next class than making my next book, if I'm honest about things.
It's what we're passionate about. I mean, I'm passionate about photography too, but that's why this podcast is called A Creative Affair, because it's all kinds of different, passions that we have. So it's awesome. I think that's an excellent place to end.
It is.
We sure talked longer than I thought we would.
It was going to be a quick episode, a quick catch up.
A little
And
quickie.
we're going to talk about all these things, which obviously we didn't. We talked about a whole lot of other things and I had a wonderful conversation.
Same. We'll link to all of those things in the notes. And if any of you have anything you'd like to share with us based on our conversation, we'd love to hear from you. So email us. It's in the episode description. Love to hear from you. All right, Len. I think that's it.
It's time to say goodbye, folks. Bye all.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us in our creative affair. If you love the passion we bring to this creative content, please support the podcast by sharing with a friend, subscribing, and leaving us a review. To find out more about Len, including his photography, Len's Journal, an inspiring quarterly publication, tours, workshops, and his new art school, the Artist Club, visit lenmetcalf.com. For more about me, Brie Stockwell, visit creativemindscoach.com. There you can subscribe to my Monday motivation emails, learn more about creative coaching, check out my online portfolio, and access searchable transcripts of these episodes. See you next time.